From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? What failure did you go through? But more importantly, what lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now, don't let a perfectly good failure go by without you getting your lesson out of it. That's your reward for your troubles. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again, before I got sick and tired of being sick and tired and fat and overweight and stuck in my body. And I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my lifestyle, habits, routines, to my environment, to my community, and to my system of beliefs, because it's all six of those that create the body that you're trying to get away from. And you're going to have to change all six of them to create your new reality that you're going to step your way into. Now, this time of year, I'm approaching a real interesting point in my life. You see, 5 years ago today, I didn't know, but a version of me was about to die. I had no way of knowing. You see, I knew my dad was about to die. I just didn't know he was about to die in 3 days. I thought I might have a few more weeks, maybe. Maybe we'd see it coming. Maybe we'd get a little warning. You could say one more thing. But no, I got the call. Hey, you need to get down here. Dad's going downhill fast. Okay. And I think, but I haven't finished my letter. You see, when I found out my dad was going to die, I went to my computer, I opened up a Word document, and I just started to type. I just started to write the things that I wanted to say, and it just poured out of me. Then the emotions got too strong, and I stopped, and I walked away. And I knew it wasn't done. I knew there was more to say. And I wanted to write it down so that I could read it to him, to make sure that no words were forgotten. Hey, you need to get down here. Dad's going downhill fast. My letter's not done. I immediately left the office, went home as fast as I could, and I sat in front of the computer, and I said, take the brakes off. Just write. Just write. Write what you want to say. This might be your only chance. Maybe, just maybe, you can write it and send it down to there and someone can read it to him. Or maybe you can read it over the phone. Just write. And so I sat there and I started to type. And I started to write the last words to my father. The last things, the last message that he was going to get while still being coherent, while still being conscious. Just write. And I wrote. And while doing it, I had said a message to my whole family saying, is there any way I can talk to Dad on the phone? And they said there's, only moments of lucidity and it comes and goes. They said the best bet would be someone reads it to him in a moment where he's there. But get down here. And so I said, okay. And I emailed it. My sister-in-law, Melissa, said that she would read it. And she did. I'll always be grateful that she did that for me. That she read my last words to my dad. And it was everything I wanted to tell him at the time. You see, I was blessed. I had a good relationship with my father. We were able to share things. So I'd shared most of what I wanted to share. I'd said pretty much everything I wanted to say. But there was a few things left. A few things that I either wanted to say again to make sure that they were heard, or maybe some things that I just had not said, and they needed to be said. So much of life, I was full of regret. Looking back on my actions going, if only I had just started sooner. If only I had just kept going. If only I had just adjusted. If only I had backed down. If only I had stood my ground. If only. And I didn't like that feeling. And I decided I think I was done leaving that little gift for my future self. I think I was done leaving regret in my future. Because you see, when you don't do the things you know you need and want to do in the present, you're setting yourself up for regret in the future. And I was doing it all the time, setting myself up for regret. But in this case, in this situation, I did not want to set myself up for regret. And I'd like to take a moment and read this letter. My dad, after hearing it, said something to the effect of, well, that's a really nice eulogy, or a really nice thing to have said at his funeral. And I didn't write it for that reason. I wrote it to say to him. But when I heard him say that he said that, I knew I had to read it. And it was hard. It was hard. And I'd like to read it to you if I could. You've been on this journey with me now, many of you, for years, because you've been on your journey and I've been going on you with yours. And you know the impact, many of you, that my dad's passing had on why I do what I do for a living. If you want the full story, I'm not going to get into it here, but you can go to episode 100 of the podcast. That's where I tell the story in detail, in a way that I believe reflects what happened. And if you want to know that story, you can go listen to it. But it was impactful. And 5 years ago, on June 10th, my father passed away. And shortly thereafter, we did the funeral, where I read this letter. And I think I'd like to read it to you now. Dad, at times I feel we leave things unsaid, and at other times I feel that we say everything. I have always liked that about our relationship. In light of this recent news of the cancer, I have been doing a substantial amount of ponderizing. I love that word. In all of this thinking, I realize that I don't want to let things go unsaid. First off, I can't possibly imagine what you're feeling, thinking, and experiencing in all of this. I really wish that I could lessen the pain for you. Perhaps this letter will help a little. I want to start off by saying I couldn't have asked for a better dad. I look back on my 30 plus years of existence, and I have no regrets with regards to our relationship. I have loved every moment of working together in my adult life, and I cherish all the lessons you have taught me. I am a better man because of those lessons. You always told me what I needed to hear, even if I didn't want to hear it. But you never told me something I wasn't ready to hear. You challenged me, you pushed me, and you put me in tough situations and let me sink or swim. And you were always there for me when I succeeded, and more importantly, when I failed. It's the failures that I have learned the most from, and you were always there to make sure I could learn from my failures. At the end of the day, I don't think I could ask for anything more than that. For me, personally, that is exactly what I needed to get to where I am today. You always let me be me. You challenged me to be the best version of myself, but you let me be myself. You let me discover who I am and who I want to be. I always forget that a lot of people didn't get that from a father. I did, and I'm grateful for it. I still remember a conversation we had when I was a kid. Johnny, my brother, had made a proclamation that he wanted to be a professional skateboarder. In my pragmatic brain, I thought that was dumb. I knew most people couldn't be a professional skateboarder and that would be a tough way to make a living. I know you knew that as well, but you didn't care. You told me that you will support him being whatever he wanted to be. That always stuck with me. Let a person be who they are and do what they want to do. Who am I to tell them they can't do something? A simple lesson, but a powerful one that showed me how to be a parent. I know I'll carry that lesson on when the time comes for me to be a dad. You raised a son who is proud of who he is and who is happy for the life he has been given. Your hard work and dedication to life have given me a platform to create a life for myself that I am happy with. You have taught me so many lessons and have prepared me to take on life successfully. I still have much to learn, I know that, but you have given me all the tools needed to make it on my own. No regrets. You should have no regrets as well. You have succeeded in everything that matters most. Your life is a success, and you should feel proud of everything you have done, the victories and the losses. All those victories and losses have paved a path for our family to live wonderful lives and to continue to live wonderful lives. You have led by example in a way few people do. If I measure up to be half as good a man as you have shown me, I think that'd be a damn good thing. The legacy is me. The legacy is my siblings and all the amazing things we Terrells will do with our lives. You built it over a lifetime, and you built it well. You should know that. The number of people in this life that you have impacted for good is probably impossible to count. You have left in your wake a countless number of people who have benefited from the way you live your life and how you treat people. I have learned from your example and plan to continue my life with the same legacy of leaving people better than I found them, even if they don't care and even if they don't want me to. I'll do it anyway. I love you, Dad. I always have and always will. I've never been the sort of guy that likes to convey love through saying, but instead by actions. I hope you have always known that I'm a loving and loyal son. Your son, Christopher. Now, before I continue on, sorry, I know that was probably an abrupt change in tone. I paused the footage and collected myself, blew my nose, wiped my eyes. I was definitely crying there at the end. I'm sure you could tell. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll know that I was crying. So you may know, or you may not, depending on when you've discovered my stuff, but I'm a big proponent of video journaling. Well, I've been documenting my life on video off and on for a while, a long time. But I got serious about it after my dad died and started doing it more and more, even going as far as buying a dedicated camera to video journal. So I've got a clip here from my video journals when I was driving back to Kansas City after my dad died, because I want you to hear how I'm talking right after my dad died. Now, remember what I said in the beginning of this episode. I didn't know it, but at this time, 5 years ago, my life was about to end. And I'm giving you the words that I use and what I was saying, and I'm about to give you my own voice from what I was thinking at this time. And then I'm going to explain some of the moments when my life shifted and changed, so you can see just how small of a moment can change your life. So set the scene. I just spent the first part of this video describing in detail, so I have it in detail, my father's last day and the entire experience of him dying. I'm not going to play that right now. I'm not ready to listen to that in this moment. I mean, I've listened to it the other day. I'm just not ready to listen to it again. But I'm going to play this part because I wanted you to hear what I was saying after. So here it is. And that was it. He was gone. You know, I'm recording this more for myself for later, and I'm not sure why. But you know, I'm glad I was there. I don't generally like being around this sort of thing. I mean, who does? But I particularly have a hard time with it. And
was sad, and it was all the emotions. It was sadness, it was anger, it was happiness, it was peace, it was spite, it was just all of them, just constantly ruffling through with a lot of grief and pain. It was sad because he was gone, but I was happy because of the life he lived. But I was angry because there was still so much left. He was in his 60s. I mean, he was not that old. But I'm at peace because he was comfortable finally again. You know, he wasn't going to suffer. Because I know if it was me, I would not want to be in a state where I'm sitting basically strapped to a bed by my own body, and I can't do anything, and my mind is gone, and I'm just basically a shell breathing with fleeting moments of that's not living. And I know Dad wouldn't have wanted to be that way very long. And in true Johnny Terrell fashion, he didn't. He did not stay in a hospital long. He wasn't going to do that. And I'm happy for him there. But life will go on. I know my dad would want all of us to live each day like it matters and to press on and continue on. And that's what I'm going to do. He was a man always trying to teach lessons because he was always trying to learn lessons. And so all he wanted to do is to help everybody else feel the joy of learning about life and themselves. And I think even in death, even in his last moments, he would want that. He would want us to look to the universe to see what the deeper meaning is. Why did it happen the way it did? Question that. And seek to find a lesson that we can apply to our own lives, that we could pass on to others. I pulled out I have his phone right here. And he has a lot of voice memos on here. And I knew he did it because he and I talked about it. And I'm going through them, and one of them, he's like, you can tell he's talking real quiet for some reason to the phone. And he said, this is the sound of bugs and crickets and frogs. And basically just talking about you can tell he's reveling in the beauty of these sounds. And then he just holds the phone up so that you can hear, because to him there was a sense of nirvana in that moment for him, and he just had to capture it. There's another one where he finds a deep life lesson in pressure washing, and he had to stop and record a 20-minute voice recording about what he learned and what he thought in that moment. Who does that? Johnny Terrell's who does that. My dad's who does that. I mean, and it's really, so a person that does that, I know would want us to do that too. To take the last month of his life and learn what we can learn from it and apply it to try to live life better. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to find the lessons here. Try to find the better meaning, the deeper meanings. Try to hear the beauty in the bugs. And find a way to live my life like it matters, and find a way to live each day like it matters. That's what he did. And find a way to treat people how he treated them. The world's an emptier place now. I'm just hoping that myself and others that knew him can fill that gap with our own actions and can honor his legacy.
Hey, old me. Hey, Dad. You won't know if you're on a podcast. If you're watching this on video, you can see it. I've got the picture of me on the video. I played the video clip on the video on the YouTube, but I'm holding my dad's phone. I got him right here. So, hey, old me. Hey, Dad. I did it. I did what I said I was going to do. Right there. My dad just died. This was the next day. June 11th, 2:17 p.m. I was in Mammoth Springs, Arkansas, driving to Kansas City. In the same truck I'm driving now. I was wearing a gray shirt, a red hat. It's 290 pounds. And I just finished writing a letter with a bunch of promises on how I'm living my life, saying, I'm happy. I'm not. I'm satisfied. I'm not. Said all sorts of things that I knew needed to be true about my life, but they weren't. I was still living the lie. Committed to the masks. Committed to the masquerade that I was a part of. So, my dad had just died, and I decided how I'm going to live my life. I looked at the legacy, and I said, I'm going to continue that legacy. I'm going to do what I can to help as many people as I can feel what my dad spent his whole life teaching me how to feel, which is how to feel like life is amazing, that you're enough, that every day is a great day to be alive, that the time is now to go for the things that you want, to stop waiting around and enjoy yourself along the way. Enjoy the journey. Don't be afraid to set a big goal because you never know, you just might get it. These are the lessons my dad taught me. And I was so grateful that I had the opportunity to share with him that he taught me well. But I believe that he was aware even then, knowing, but there was still so much left to tell you. There was still so much left to teach you. There's so much left for you to learn. Well, it's been 5 years since my dad died. And I've learned a lot in 5 years. My life has changed. I did what I said I was going to do. I made a life that I'm proud of. I made a life that's what I love in every part of it. And I love where it's heading. I learned a lot in 5 years. And I'd like to share with you some of the things I learned. Honestly, I'm sharing this to my dad. But you get to listen. Because here, this microphone, this podcast, well, I've been taking this podcast on this emotional journey for a couple of years now. I think we're going to keep going. And so these are 10 things that I've learned that have changed my life in all the ways that I'm happy with. The first thing I've learned, well, I already knew it. I just decided to actually take it serious, which is the importance of having a why and a clearly defined goal. I was going through life with a clearly defined goal, but not usually a lot of reasons why I wanted to get them. And I was usually, because I was so afraid of I might not accomplish a goal, I would keep them close to the chest. And I wouldn't tell my loved ones, like my spouse, about my goals. So they were just mine. And I wouldn't write them down. And I wouldn't talk about them very much. But they were there, just kind of in the back. I mean, it's better than no goal. But I missed out. In the last 5 years, I've learned you build a vision of the life that you want. And then you step into that vision. And you need to not dabble in it, not dip a toe. You need to jump in like a reflection in a pond into the vision of your future. Well, you've got to stop and imagine it. You got to stop and create it in your mind. It works. It works. I've learned that in the last 5 years. It works. And you need to bring other people into your vision. Your spouse, your kids, your loved ones. Bring them into your vision. Tell them about it. Talk about it. It just might happen. Let go of how long it's going to take. You don't have to worry about that. That's not up to you. But you do get to decide the direction you go. I mean, the time is going to pass anyway. You might as well be letting it pass while you're moving in the general vicinity of where you'd like to go. Number 2 thing I learned over the last 5 years that's changed my life is I should create a schedule that drives results. I once used to think you have to manage time. You don't manage time. You manage your activities. Well, activities get results. You do enough of a certain activity, you're going to get a certain result. You know, you hit a tree with an axe enough times, eventually the tree falls over. It doesn't fall over from the first one. It's through the repetitive actions of it. That's what makes it happen. You take enough steps, before you know it, you've gone a marathon. So, well, if time is going to pass anyway, you might as well do something while the time is passing. You might as well have something to help. And if you have a goal, you can do activities that help move you in the direction of your goal. But if you don't have a goal, you don't know what to put in your schedule. And so I've realized, if you have a goal, it makes it easy to schedule things because you're like, all right, well, I got like 100 things that need to be done. What's the first one? Perfect. When am I going to do it? Let's put it on the schedule. If you don't put things on schedules, things don't get done. Go figure. So you know what happened 5 years ago? I stopped putting only my work things on a schedule. You see, I actually use a schedule. I thought I was a schedule person. I just only did it with my work. And you know what? I got great results at work. I did. My career did great. I had a great career. I mean, by all definitions, my previous career was wildly successful. I didn't enjoy the success, and I made it way more miserable than it needed to be, and I totally robbed myself of a bunch of earning potential because I was so worried about what people thought. But by and large, it was a great career. I have no regrets. I learned everything I needed to learn from it. But one of the things that I didn't do was take all those principles that was making me successful at work and then bring them into my personal life. Like things like putting shit on a calendar, having a goal, putting activities that take you towards the goal. So I started doing that. And again, it's so obvious. I already knew it. It was just, I started taking it seriously. It's amazing how there's, just taking something seriously and doing it will work. Go figure. Like learning more things doesn't necessarily make things get done. All right. The third thing that I really learned, and again, I already knew it. I just took it seriously. But here's the third thing. Be happy now. And as I pursued that, I discovered that one's stupid. You don't want to be happy all the time. No one wants to be happy all the time. You think you do, but you don't. Music is good because it has crescendos and decrescendos. Movies are great when there's good times and bad times. We want the dynamic range of life from an emotional standpoint. Even though we say we don't, we do. And so I was like, wait a minute. I can't be happy all the time. But I want something all the time. What is it I want? And that's where I've learned. The true third thing is I want to be at peace no matter what's happening. That's what I want. If I stopped pursuing being happy and instead started pursuing being at peace regardless of what's happening around me at that given moment, I'll be damned if happiness just didn't become so much easier to start finding. Just going to throw that out there. But I cannot tell you the last time I have said, I wish this day hadn't have happened. It's been 2 years, 3 years. I don't know. I got to go back and look at my journals to find out because I was notating. I'm like, hey, it's been like a year since I have said, I wish this day hadn't happened. This was a bad, terrible day. I haven't said that. And I've had some rough days. I mean, I've had some days that were really, really hard. And like in the middle of it, I was like, man, I'm tempted to say it. But I don't say it. I don't let myself get into it. And I make myself say the opposite, which is I'm glad this day happened. And there's sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure why I'm glad this day happened. I'm hoping I'll find out in a few days because right now I'm having a hard time seeing why I should be grateful for the existence of this day. But I'm grateful for today. All right, life. Show me what you got. And sometimes, 2-3 weeks later it goes by. I'm like, oh, I see why that day benefited me. I just need a little time pass, get a little perspective shift on it. So being at peace is actually easier because I can't control what is happening around me all the time as much as I actually would like to. Hey, I'll level with you. If I could control everything around me, I would. Like 100% I would. And I tried. It didn't work. Maybe you figured it out, but I ain't figured it out. And I ain't met anybody yet that's figured it out. And if you figured it out, call me. I want to pay you a bunch of money and we're going to go write a book together. Like, I ain't figured out how to control everything around me. But what I did discover, if I just go, oh, there's just always going to be a significant amount of things in my life that I have no control over. Now what? It's like, let's just accept that. Now what? All right, well, am I saying I'm willing to be unhappy every time something out of my control happens? And I was like, oh, I mean, when I say it out loud, that sounds kind of stupid. I mean, but I haven't said it out loud before, right? You see, this is what happens when you just stop and ponder your values and you just stop and ponder why you do what you do. This is why studying yourself on paper is so great. Actually, I think I put that on the list. Yes. You know what? Let's do number 5 and then we're going to do number 4. I'm going to switch them because the order on this paper doesn't matter. So hold on. Number 4 is think on paper. I didn't think on paper before 5 years ago, hardly. I did at work. I took voracious notes at work. And again, so I got results at work. But you know what I didn't do? Think about myself on paper, talk about my emotions on paper, talk about my life experiences on paper, sit down and pull out a page and go, let me write 30 things that I'm good at just for shits and giggles. I've done that where I just say, self, write down a list of 25 things about me that are fucking awesome. Cool. Let's write it out. Fill out the list. I ain't got to show anybody. Let's be Bragger McBraggerson here. Like, I've done that. If you feel good when you go through your journal and you stumble on that list and you're like, why, thank you. I do think I'm good at these. Thank you, old me. That was a wonderful list to leave for me to read later. Think about it. You're robbing yourself of that. Why? Because of your pride? Come on. Let that go. Get over yourself. Just sit down, pull out a piece of paper, write 25 compliments. Sit down, pull out a piece of paper and say, I'm having a hard time navigating the current situation. And here's why. And then write down a list. Or sit down and pull out a piece of paper and go, I am feeling this way. I don't care why. I just want to write down all the words that I want to say to everybody, ever, anywhere, now. And blah, 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 blah. And you just let it all verbal vomit right out onto the page, right? Just think on a piece of paper. You will be amazed at how your life will change after a few years of doing that. Will doing it 5 or 6 times change your life? Really? Really? Did you actually think that was going to happen? I'm sorry, but sometimes silly questions need a silly response. Come on now. You did not actually think, for real, that 6. You might have hoped that 5 or 6. Well, let me ask, just in case, right? You know, it'd be good to know if 6 journal sessions will do it, because I can commit to 6. No, it's probably going to take years. At first, you probably suck at it. You're probably going to self-censor yourself all over the place, which makes no sense. You already know your thoughts. Why would you filter them from yourself? Just write them down. Oh, I know why. Because you're like, I don't want to admit that I thought that terrible, horrible, awful, really no good, bad thing. I don't want to admit this. You already thought it. Like, you're not admitting anything. You already did it. There's actual value in writing it down and then maybe immediately after going, well, that's a dumb way of thinking. Like, acknowledge it. Write it down. Put a date on it. Be like, on this date, I recognize that I think this way and I think to myself, this is dumb. I don't want to think this way anymore. And then when you study yourself and you're going back in your notebook a year later, you're like, oh yeah, I actually got better at that. Or a year later, you're looking at it as like, oh yeah. Nope, I'm still not any better at that one. I might need to do some work. If you can think on paper, you will learn how to be at peace in everything. You will learn how to navigate anything. You'll discover how much good can come into your life by just writing things down. And you know what? You don't want to write things down? That's fine. I don't either. That's why I video journal. You just heard a little of mine earlier. Video journaling is awesome. And if you don't want a video journal, talk to the air. What you need to do is externalize your thinking. When you get it all stuck in your head, you just play telephone. You know the game telephone, right? Where you go tell a person something, they tell the next person that same message, and the next person that message, and the next person. So you start off by saying like, the box is made of cardboard and I like to blow my nose. And on the other end, the person's like, zebras are great and don't you know? It's like something completely different. It makes no sense. You're like, how did that happen? You know, because the message gets a little twisted. Well, think about it. When you're ruminating, you're just playing telephone with yourself inside your own brain. You're slightly altering every single repetition of the memory, adding a little bit more charge to one aspect of the memory and diminishing a little bit the charge to one aspect. Before you know it, you've made the thing way scarier than it was. All right? Like, that's why if you just externalize it, It's amazing how many times when I'm working with somebody, I'm asking them questions. And then as they're talking out loud, they're like, oh, I hear it. Oh, right. Yep, that helped. I needed to say that out loud, right? You don't need to pay a therapist to do that. You can. It's okay, but a lot of times you just need to say the things. And for some strange reason, you've decided they're only real if somebody else hears it. Like, what? No, you can talk to yourself and it's just as real as if you're talking to another person. You still said it just as much. You still heard it just as much. You can still enjoy yourself saying it just as much. I'm telling you, think on paper. All right, number 5. I decided to trust myself. I have decided, I still do this, to trust myself that I have good intentions. Because often in my past, but pre 5 years ago, I would look to my past and assume I had bad intentions or assume I was lazy or assume some other sort of judgment of my character. And you know what? That made it really easy to beat myself up in my head. That made it really, really easy to do that. I mean, of course I did that. I made myself in the past look like a buffoon. I wasn't, but in my brain I was. I totally was not fair to myself. So when I decided to just I'm just going to assume that I had good intentions all across the board with everything that I did. That doesn't mean I made the right choice. I'm not going to absolve myself of getting something wrong. I could be like, yo, self, that was clearly the wrong answer in this situation. I see why you did it. I get it. But we're not going to do that again in the future, right? Come on now. That did not work. That works so much better than man, self, why are you so dumb? Why are you so ignorant? Don't you care about other people? You should just be listening. If I'm over there just harping on myself like that don't make me feel good. I just feel bad when someone talks to me that way. And if I talk to me that way, it also makes me feel bad. But if I look to myself and just give myself the benefit of the doubt, think about it. Think of all the disagreements you've had with all the people in your life. Wouldn't a lot of them have gone a lot easier if the other person just blindly gave you the benefit of the doubt? Isn't a lot of times the disagreements come down to the other person just doesn't understand your motives? They made assumptions about your reasoning for why you did something. You're like, no, that's not why I did it. I did it because of this. Wouldn't it be easier if they just gave you the benefit of the doubt? Have you ever considered that maybe, just maybe, you do that to other people in your life? You don't give them the benefit of the doubt. And maybe, just maybe, you're not giving yourself the benefit of the doubt either. It doesn't feel good to have people assume the worst intentions, especially yourself. So just give yourself the benefit of the doubt and assume that you had good intentions. And you'll make different decisions anyway. All right, number 6, stop setting expectations on things outside my control. Now, this I learned. I learned this one over a few years. I slowly over time realized that I was placing expectations on things that I can't control. I'm going to say this to this person, and I have an expectation of how they're going to respond. Turns out, I can't control another person's reaction. I tried for 20 some odd years to control and influence other people's reactions. Well, maybe if I say it this way, they'll respond here. Nope. I get it wrong way more often than I get it right. And when I get it right, I'm pretty sure it's just because of the broken clock syndrome. You know what that is, right? A broke clock's right twice a day. So you do things enough times, you're just going to get it right by chance, But I was equating my getting it right by chance for, look how good I am at this. And I don't know. Maybe I influenced it. Maybe I didn't. I just know I never got very good at it. If you just look at the numbers, I typically got it wrong. So when I stopped setting the expectations on how people are going to react to me and just said, I'm just going to respond to them when I see how they respond. I'm just going to do me, and a person will react to that somehow, and I will see what they do, and then I will consciously pause and choose how I'm going to respond to it. When I adopted that mindset, instead of saying, oh, and so or such and such does this, it made me feel blah. When, oh, you did this and it made me feel mad. When you did this, you made me sad. When you did this, you made me happy. When you did this, you made me terrified. I realized, wait a minute, who's in charge here? Are all of you in charge? Or am I in charge of how I feel? And I decided I didn't like not being in charge of how I feel. I didn't like it. I'm in charge. So no, you did not do this and it made me feel anything. You did this and I chose to feel this way. And I need to understand why I chose it, because maybe I chose it for a really justifiable reason that I actually need to talk to you about. Turns out I don't like it when people yell at me. I need to address this. Like, hey, great, right? But I realized I was not looking at me. I need to place expectations on myself. How will I react? How will I respond? I can place expectations on that because I am in control of myself. But I can't control others. You can't control your spouse. You can't control your spouse. You cannot. You can't control your kids. You can't. You can't. You can influence them, but I promise you can't control them. They're going to think what they're going to think, and you can influence it, but you can't control it. All right? So stop placing expectations on things you cannot control. And your life is going to be so much more peaceful. So much more peaceful. My father-in-law told me something that I absolutely love. He said, expectations are just premeditated disappointments. And I don't think I could have said it any better than that. So we're going to move on from that one. All right. Number 7, feel emotions and don't escape them. You know, I thought I knew this one. I thought I knew that one. If you'd have walked up to me at 35, I'd have been like, well, yeah, there's some emotions I struggle with, but, I don't mind emotion. No, I was wrong. I was super wrong. I had no idea how to identify emotions. Had no idea how to feel emotions. I knew how to do it with some of them, but a lot of them I didn't. I really, really didn't. And I totally would just eat my feelings all the time. Turns out, if you work on your emotional health, turns out that if you learn how to feel your emotions and not be ruled by them, but have them, because keep in mind, being completely controlled by your emotions and being completely devoid emotions are just two sides of the same coin. They're just the opposite spectrum, right? Neither of them are good. They each are good and bad in their own right, but neither of them are good. Balance in the middle is where you want to be. But turns out if you get yourself to a place of balance, your emotional eating goes down. Turns out, and if your emotional eating goes down, you eat a lot less food. Turns out if you're eating a lot less food, it makes weight loss a lot easier because you don't overindulge in one day, wiping out 2 weeks of work, right? Oh, man, I wish I had known that. I wish I knew that like 20 years ago. I don't need to diet. I need to learn how to be a fully functioning adult with feelings, and I need to learn how to process them. And just because nobody is teaching me anymore, that doesn't absolve me of my own personal responsibility of figuring out how to work this thing called a human body. Man, at 20 years when I was sent off into the world, I didn't know how to use this thing. The manuals were too complicated. They're still complicated. But man, no one told me really how to use this body. Health class did not prepare me adequately at all. And one of the things I was not prepared for was emotional health and emotional regulation. I think, honestly, the generations behind me are doing so much better. I'm so excited. I love hearing around my stepkids talk about emotions and feelings. So much better. They're doing better than us, and I hope the generation after them does even better. But, escaping your feelings doesn't work. I've learned this in the last 5 years. If you escape your feelings and run away from them and numb out, they just gonna lie there waiting for you. They don't have a problem. They're patient. They're just gonna sit there. And whenever you're done, when you let your guard down, they're gonna get all over you. Just feel your feelings, and it's easier when they're fresh. It's harder when they're not. You got to feel it longer, it seems. All right, number 8 that I have discovered. You remember earlier when I said something about a goal, how you got to have one and whys and know what you're pursuing? Here's a mindset that's going to help you. Relentless forward progress. I knew this one already, and I had only applied it in business. But I discovered when you take that principle and you apply it to your personal life, relentless forward progress. Over a period of years, your life can become unrecognizable and it can become better in every possible way. If you will just have relentless forward progress, if you will be fine with just microscopic improvements, better is better. It doesn't matter. There's an early podcast way in the beginning. I haven't told this story in ages. I'm going to tell it again. I was at a gym. during the pandemic. It was like this old Rocky style gym that this dude was able to get me access to, which was like super cool because it was in the middle of pandemic. I'm like, this is my Rocky montage moment. And you damn well guarantee I've used it in a montage. You can find it pinned to the top of my TikTok channel. Hell yeah. Anyway, so in this gym, I discovered my roommate is like super swole and super strong and like big time into powerlifting. So that was kind of cool. And anyway, so he asked me to go get him a plate, some of the weights to put on the thing. And while I'm over there, I see these little teeny tiny plastic ones. And I was like, I've never seen such a thing so small. So I go bring him the weight, and then I walk back over and I look and I pick him up and I see, now keep in mind, at this time, the smallest weight I had ever seen was 1.5 pounds. So one single plate, 1.5 pounds. So you can do one on one side, one on the other. That's 3 pounds. That's the smallest I'd ever seen. And now I'm seeing 1.25, 1 1/4, 1, 3/4, half, 3/8. Like they got all the way down to 1/4 of a pound. This little teeny tiny plastic 1/4 of a pound plate. I mean, it was comically small. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, what are these for? And so I walk over to the guy and I was like, and I'm holding him like, hey, what are these for? I'm like, these are really small. He goes, well, think about it. If you're going for the world record, you might be the first person that's done that by the 1/4 pound. Like, so they want to have smaller increments. Like, there is a line where it's just no one's crossed it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. If you're chasing incremental improvements, yeah, you need to have smaller units of measure. But really the message I took away from that is better is better. It doesn't matter how much better. Better is better. If the world record is 900 pounds and you get 900 pounds, well, that's better. You get the world record now. It's better. It's like, well, take that mindset and put it into your personal life. Better is better. Who cares how much better? Stop getting all worried about things like that don't matter, like how much better. No, better is better. And that's all that matters. Relentless forward progress and just always better your best because you're always improving or going backwards. And the best way to make sure you don't go backwards is to keep going upwards. That's the best way. So but you can't infinitely make big steps. That'll wear you out. So make teeny tiny steps and every now and then throw in some big ones. But like just do all the teeny tiny steps and just always be moving forward. Number 9. This one was one I had heard and I thought didn't matter. And I thought I was the exception for lots of reasons that we won't get into. And maybe some of you are going to be like how I was. But turns out this next one that I'm going to read is super real, like super duper, ultra duper real. Like turns out it's written in all sorts of books. I have now since in the last 5 years, as I've gone on my personal growth journey, I've read a bunch of books. This thing I'm about to read, turns out it's in like all the books. Like everybody's saying it. I have a bunch of my dad's self-help books that he got in like the 70s. I love those things because books were harder to make back then. So they had to really believe in what they were making. It turns out this stuff's in there. So then I went back even further into the books written in the 50s. Turns out this stuff's in there. So I went back to the 20s. Turns out the stuff's in there. And then I'm like, well, let's jump hundreds of years back. Turns out the stuff is written all the way back there. I'll be damned. So if all the successful people going back and back and back and back and back and back and back have been writing when I'm about to tell you down, I think it's safe to assume they're telling the truth. Okay. Now you don't got to trust me. Look, just if you don't trust me on this one, you can go read these books yourself. I will give you the list. Like it's all right. I'll tell you about it, but here it is. My thoughts impact me 24/7. That's it. As a man thinketh, so is he. I think that comes from the book. If you go into philosophy and theology, they both say the same things. Your thoughts affect you. Your thoughts affect you. They come out of different ways, but they say it. You go to all the different studies in the world, they all say this. Thoughts affect you. You go to all the self-help books, thoughts affect you. You just keep coming back to it. The thoughts you think affect you. And many of us are poisoning our mind. We're constantly injecting information that isn't helpful, that is harmful to whatever it is we're attempting to accomplish. And sometimes the things that you're taking into your mind is coming from your social network, coming from the people around you. Your closest friends and family. You are going to end up like them because you're going to think like them because they're going to plant thoughts and ideas into your head all the stinking time. That's why it's so hard if your family's your eating buddies, which for you, many of you, that is the case. That sucks, but it's true. Your friends and your family are your eating buddies. And when you've decided you're going to eat less, they're like, yo, where's my eating buddy? They're not going to say that. It's not like drinking buddies are like, where's my drinking buddy? When the one decides they're going to get sober, they don't do that. They don't call themselves drinking buddies. The only person that calls them drinking buddies are the ones that's in the program. And Alcoholics Anonymous. The only ones that call them eating buddies are people like you and me. We recognize our eating buddies. And yeah, you might have to pull away from them. That might stink. That might suck. You might make some new friends. The way you spend time with your family might shift. You might hurt somebody's feelings occasionally. I don't know. You're going to have to pick your battles. But the odds of you getting through this unscathed, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. And sugarcoat this. Yes, there's a way to do this where you'll never hurt anybody's feelings. Now, do you feel any better that I told you a very obvious not truth? No, you don't want to be lied to. You want to be told the truth. You know this. But here's the thing. Here's the truth. The God's honest truth. What you carry around in your brain all the time is going to affect you. And this is why I've discovered the importance of being very careful about what I listen to now, and very careful about what I read, and very careful about how I talk, and very careful about how I interact with people, because I've discovered my brain is always listening to me. Yeah, my brain listens to other people, but my brain is really listening to me all the time. And your brain is listening to you all the time. And when you're talking, that's just thinking out loud. And when you're thinking, that's just having a conversation on the inside. And you're just having both sides of it. Your brain is listening to you. And even when you're listening to other people, you're adding your own flair and twist to what it is that they're telling you. So you're not actually hearing what people are telling you. You're hearing your version of what they're telling you. Because you don't carry all the same meanings, all the words. You twist it slightly. Might be close, might be real close, but be just a little off sometimes. Sometimes you can be a lot off and not notice. So you must be mindful of how you think. And you have to watch your thoughts. You have to watch your speech. You have to watch your language in your casual everyday conversations, because turns out your brain is listening then too. When you're laying there in your bed by yourself and you're thinking these terrible, awful thoughts about yourself, your brain is listening then too. When you're sitting there in your therapist's office talking bad about yourself to your therapist, and your therapist keeps asking you to stop doing that, you're listening to yourself then. You've got to be nice. You got to talk softly to yourself. It's okay to be passionate calmly with yourself. You can do that. You can be honest with yourself, but be nice. Be nice. Your thoughts are mattering all the time. All the time. So just remember that. And let me tell you the last one. Number 10. Number 10. It's something, again, if you go back in time, back and back and back, you'll find everybody saying the same thing. And they're not lying. But if you think they're lying, or if you think it doesn't apply to you, you'll be right. And that was me. I didn't think it applied. And so I was right. But when I decided that it applied, I was right. And so it's number 10. Creating the life of your dream is possible. Creating the life of your dream is possible. You see, 5 years ago, to this date, exactly, if I looked around, there was not one single part of my life that I said, it's how I want it. Not one. That's not to say it was bad. That's not to say if I had done nothing that I would have had a miserable, horrible existence. It's not to say that at all. It's just to say that I looked at the life that I had, and it wasn't the life that I had wanted. It wasn't the life that I had envisioned when I was younger. It wasn't the life that in my heart of hearts I wanted, and I knew it. And I knew it was my fault. It was no one's fault but mine. I could not blame anyone. I got precisely the life that I worked for. And I didn't like it. I didn't like my finances. I didn't like my romantic relationships. I didn't like my professional job. I didn't like my friend relationships, my social life. I didn't like the dynamics I had with my family. I didn't like my house I was living in. I didn't like the exact location I was living. And of course, it also included I didn't like my body. I didn't like what it looked like. Not at all. I didn't like my face. I didn't like the shape of my head. I didn't like the shape of my chubby fingers. I didn't like that I didn't have ankles. I didn't like the sores I was getting on my inner thighs all the time, and that I was constantly wearing out underwear from rubbing and pants from rubbing my legs together. I was getting sick and tired of that. I was getting sick and tired of wearing out mattresses. I was getting sick and tired of wearing out my chairs. I was getting tired of acid reflux constantly. Every day, just about sometimes. It was debilitating, was the only word I knew to adequately describe it. I didn't like the intestinal issues I was having. I didn't like any of it. And I decided to nuke it all. I decided to say, I'm ripping it all out and starting over. I thought it would take a long time, 10, 15 years maybe, to get everything how I wanted it, because I knew I was going to have to change everything. And the problem was I didn't know what I wanted to change it to. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew what I had was not it. So part of the journey had to include the discovery of what is it I want. So I had to embark on a journey of discovery of myself to get to know me. And here I sit 5 years later, and I did it. I did something that I didn't think was possible. I took a life that wasn't what I wanted. And in 5 years, I created the life of my dream. It doesn't look like any picture I created in my mind. It looks nothing like it. Like what the pictures I'd have created in the beginning, there's no way I could have imagined the life I'm living today. It was just unfathomable. But what I did know was how I wanted to feel. I knew the emotions I wanted to have when I got there. And I realized it a few days ago on a run. I crossed the finish line, the one that I didn't know if it was possible to cross, but I decided to go for it anyway, just like I did with my weight loss journey. I said, I'm going to create the life of my dreams in every aspect: financial, romantic, family, social, job, career, personal life, fitness, my body, my mind, my spirituality, all of it. And it was so slow. Oh my gosh, it was slow. I mean, there's a few moments where something big happened, but like, I can't put my finger on when I came into being. And yet, if I compare myself to myself in the beginning, I'm unrecognizable in a lot of ways. If you were to sit down and talk with me, you would see we are not the same person. But I don't know when I showed up. I just know I was just here one day. And I have video footage documenting the whole journey. I can't find a video clip where I'm like, there I am. I can't see it. It's just I'm slowly arriving. And that's what I want for you. I want you to create and step into the life of your dreams, filled with everything you want. I'm not going to tell you what's right and wrong. It's not my place. But I do know that there's something you deserve to have. And if you don't have it, that's a shame. And you should go get it. You deserve to live the life that makes you happy. And I know you might think losing weight will be helpful with that, and it will help. But don't make the mistake of thinking that losing weight is going to somehow fix some other part of your life. So if there's another part of your life outside of the weight loss, it's not how you want it. It's not the way it ought to be. Maybe, just maybe, you can make a plan to do something about it. Hey, it took me a couple of years to sort out the career thing. It took me years to sort out the romantic thing. It took me the whole dang time to sort out the financial thing. I mean, moving, getting rid of a house, changing relationships. Now I'm a stepdad. Like all these things, they take time. They take time. But if you never get started, you're never going to be done. But if you haven't identified what you need to work on, you're probably not ever going to get started. So my advice, take a look at your life. All of it. Is it how you want it? And if it's not, do myself the honor. Let this message be the nudge. Let this one be the nudge to reimagine your life. Go for something big. All right. Thanks for being with me on this journey. Thanks for those of you, my longtime listeners especially. Thank you so much for going with me on this journey with this podcast. It means so much to me that you've been doing it. And it's been my absolute honor and pleasure for all of you that are going on your journey year in and year out. It has been my honor and pleasure to go with you on your journey. And thank you for giving me a front row seat to it. In the Facebook group, I always want to hear an update. Feel free to share any wins. Feel free to share any victories you've had. I love reading them. I love seeing them. And you're always welcome to tag me. I can't respond to all of them, but like I do make a point to go click on them and look at them. So if you have an update post, tag me in it. I'd love to hear about it. All right. Have an awesome rest of your week. And I'll see you next time on the Chris Terrell Podcast.